This is Red Dog Terrain. Welcome back to the shed. Today we're building a Sandcrawler. I started this build with math. I'm pretty good at math. I know Pythagoras, and I can do fractions. And I made a plan for how to build this massive transport. But eventually, I would just wing it and cover up my mistakes with grime and glue. Starting with this wine box, I cut it down to the size I thought I would need. I made sure to do precise cuts and sharp angles. But that was taking way too long, so I switched to the snap method, and that was much quicker. The sides were made out of double-walled cardboard, and the bottom was dollar store foam board. I chose to do foam board on the bottom because I ran out of cardboard. You can see that this piece was definitely too big. This was just about when I gave up on math. Stay in school, kids. Just in case somebody doesn't stay all the way to the end, this thing ended up being massive. It's 28 inches long, 16 inches high, and 13 inches wide. I have no idea what I'm going to do with this, and I have no idea where I'm going to store it. I had several reference photos, and even a set of Sandcrawler blueprints. But Sandcrawlers vary in size and shape a bit, depending on the movie, show, or video game. I did my best to make this one match the original from the 1977 Star Wars: A New Hope. As I was building, I wasn't very happy with the shape of the front, so I turned it into the back. This thing was rather wobbly and not very structurally sound, so using scraps of foam and bits of cardboard and lots of hot glue, I got a basic shape that held together and could be moved around. This was a lot of measuring and cutting and adjusting, and I knew I had a plan for later to cover up any gaps. This will probably be the longest video I've ever made. I tried to keep them around 7 to 10 minutes, but as I'm recording this one, it's over 16 minutes. Please let me know in the comments if you like the longer videos, or should I keep them short? Should I have made this one a two-parter? This is when I noticed that I can't even follow my own notes. In the movie, you can't see this top part, so I took some liberties. But this front deck, or lookout, was way too high. So I taped a ruler to it and cut a nice straight edge. I think this was rather clever. I didn't bother to peel off the stickers on the box, but I did add some medium weight chipboard in the weak corners. Sandcrawlers are not completely flat on the outside. They have little recesses and alcoves, so I cut out a few spots and filled them with tubes and pipes, or just put some foam behind it. Here's where my plan to hide the gaps came in. With a sheet of medium weight chipboard, I cut strips in a few odd shapes and glued them on. It was super easy and added some nice chunky lines. On the left side, you can see the rear of the Sandcrawler. I glued in some grimy grating. Once again, in the movie, you don't see this part, so who knows, maybe it does look like that. I wanted to make it so you could take the top off. I wanted to be able to show people how that was built. I cut a rectangle of 1/4-inch plywood and glued it to the bottom. The foam was a little weak, and I wanted to add some strength to it. I would eventually add a block of foam to this to hold the majority of the weight. Then it came time for the secret sauce, which of course is just Mod Podge and black paint. This strengthens the foam and protects it from the multiple layers of spray paint I would put on. I really struggled with these tank treads. I wasn't sure how I was going to make them all uniform and had to add the small detail pieces. Around this time, I actually stopped working on it for a few weeks. I built a kite house from episode 40 while I was trying to figure out the wheels. I had made a template out of cardboard and ran it through the hot wire, but that's where I stopped. I've had my procs on for a while now, but I still don't feel like I get the best use out of it. I don't get clean, straight, vertical cuts, and that's why I ended up having to sand these pieces. This is where my progress halted for quite some time. But in time, I got back to work. I found some new Sandcrawler pictures. I got some supplies and bits that I needed and charged for it. I used a spackle on a tube to fill a few gaps. Some of the new pictures I found were the rear of the Sandcrawler. I did my best interpretation based on the shape and limitations I had created for myself. Sandcrawlers have walls that stick out to protect the engine. I did this using triangle cut pieces of foam and chipboard. Everything got a coat of rusty brown. I also did quick and random sprays of tan, dark brown, and orange, but it doesn't really matter because I'd end up repainting the whole thing. My library has several 3D printers, and I printed out a few detail pieces for the tank treads. I used a handheld hot wire to cut holes to have the top parts recessed into the foam. I also sanded them for better adhesion. Next would come the most tedious part of the whole build. I would cut thin strips of chipboard and super glue them all over the Sandcrawler to make panels and lines. It was a grand day on Tatooine for the Utan clan of Jawas. 38 years ago today, the clan found a mining and smelting semi-autonomous facility left by the Corellian Mining Corporation. It was in bad shape then, and much of the nuclear fusion stream reactors had to be rebuilt. But now it moved across the desert of Tatooine effortlessly. It slowly traversed the Waldo Flats and through the Sleuth Canyon. It made stops in Anchorhead and what was left of Fort Tuscan. It carried their entire clan and thousands of droids, parts, and junk. This massive transport was their home, their culture, and their livelihood. And today was their Sandcrawler Gotcha Day. I added a few wires to the treads, and with the greeblies attached, I glued them to the bottom. I also added extra supports behind them, and a large support right in the middle. The whole thing doesn't weigh much, less than 5 pounds, but I wanted to be extra secure. All that got a coat of the secret sauce, and later a coat of black spray paint. Next, I built a magnetic suction tube that yeets R2 inside. It's a fancy water bottle top, split in two, with a different bottle top between them sitting on a cog from an old printer. I pulled out a bunch of greeblies out of my bits box and slapped them on. I knew they couldn't be anything too large because the sides of a crawler are mostly flat. Greeblies include a robot head, a helmet, calculator keys, misprinted 3D prints, beads, cardboard squares, fan bits, a cog, a bit of chain, a hook, a battery cover, and a few other pieces I couldn't identify. Then I had the idea of using popsicle sticks for the treads. I chopped up a bunch of 1" by 1" squares and hot glued them on. Then I cut a strip of cardstock and laid it across. I'm almost positive this is not how tank treads work, but it looks good. Big thanks to the band Aya for the use of their music in all my videos. The first song you heard was Sunan on their 4th studio album, Ominous, and this song is Yalda Bayath from their most recent album. Check them out on Bandcamp, link in the description. The edges of the underside were looking a little plain, so I added part of a broken battery charger, the innards of a deodorant stick, and another part of that old printer. I made a batch of custard, tile grout, fine sand, glue, paint, and a bit of water, and slathered this all over the place. But I concentrated on the cracks and edges and wherever there was a greebly. This close to the finish line, I was seeing sandcrawlers everywhere. While walking with my partner, I saw someone was throwing away a little Tyke's car. I told her I wanted to take it and turn it into a sandcrawler. She said I was thinking about sandcrawlers way too much. I told her it was like that corn song from the 90s, Adidas. All day I dream about sandcrawlers. With all the grime and texture done, it was time for another coat of spray paint. The main body got a rusty brown, the treads got a dark brown and gray, the engine I painted black and gray. And like before, I did a few random sprays of tan, orange, and light brown. I did a dry brush over the whole thing, but it didn't really show up well. Maybe I should have done the dry brush after the washes. Guess I'll just have to build another Sandcrawler. Speaking of washes, I mixed up a big batch of cheap acrylic wash and went to town. The whole thing got covered. I did dab off some here and there as I went, so it didn't look too dark. Using a variety of oil washes, off camera, I added some highlights and accents. I put on some texture paste, especially around the bottom, and I blacked out the windows on the front. I want to thank all those who subscribe to my channel and like my videos. I want to give an extra special thanks to those who consistently comment and encourage me. It means more than you'll ever know. Thanks. This build was a huge challenge and lots of fun. Now here come the glamour shots.